Today we're talking, just repeating for all those that are just joining us, we're talking about working with PMs, with product managers. And here, or no,
Yes.
with PMs. Apparently I put on the title, working with PMs, and it looked like I was putting working with PMS. And that, like, okay, probably we shouldn't put it like that. We should just put product managers. So
I think it's a good call.
I think it's better if we just put product managers. So working with product managers, designers in a team, not just product managers, but like everyone in a team that is working on a project and product. How does that look? And that's what we're going to be discussing here. If you have a question, or if you don't agree with something that we say here, please leave it in the comment too.
Yes.
We also want to read your opinions.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start. The first thing that I want to know, Adam, you as a product manager, I want to start with the bad stuff. I want to start with, what are the things that we designers like that you don't like? The things that you are like. There's a stereotype about designers that probably it's true that you have proven, like, you guys are. What is the thing that you don't like about us?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
As a general thing.
It's usually
Or probably a bad experience with a specific design. It doesn't have to be. Sorry, Ugur?
No. Like, one thing I learned, particularly at these kind of subjects, you usually first ask like positive things, and then you ask about negative. But I think that's a great start. I like it. It's much more. How would you say?
Yeah, it's an opportunity to get better. If you want to switch it to a positive tone.
Yeah, I'd say a positive way to spin this is, when working with designers, because of the nature of the work, and Pablo, this is exactly true even when you and I used to work together, is because of the nature of design work, and because it's so, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not rigid, it's more of an art, obviously, than a science. There isn't a set process where you tighten this bolt to a certain strength, and then you go to step 2. It's definitely not like that. It's much more fluid. Because of that, the style of how people work and the way that they achieve work is different. So as a product manager, it often takes a lot of time, like multiple months in most cases, of working with someone to understand, like, what is their personality like, how do they like to work, how do they like to communicate. And that's probably a negative thing, is that in working with designers, sometimes it just takes time to go through that process. I haven't found a good way. If there are any viewers out there that know a good way to speed this up, feel free to share it in the comments. But to kind of overcome those hurdles, where the ideal working relationship often just takes a little bit of time and effort. There isn't like a process that you can follow as, I will do these things, and then you do these other things, and then we're fine.
I see.
Like, if there was a way to agree on those things up front, I think that would be helpful, but I haven't seen one.
I see.
Much more often, it just takes a designer and a product manager to start a software project, begin working together,
Indeed.
and then through that series of interactions over time, you'll figure out what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah. Good point. I think it depends on the company to company, culture to culture, team to team, and person to person, right?
Agreed. Like, everything, like, as tactical as a skill set.
Yeah.
Like when do you hand off a project to a partner designer, to a product manager? When do you need, or when to best utilize one another's skill set?
Pablo, how is your what do you think about processes?
I love the idea of processes, and just the idea of like having a source of truth of the thing that you have to follow to get to success. But I also think that processes are there just, you have to follow them as a guideline and not as the rule of law.
Agreed.
Something that it just like helps you to, when you're lost, like go back to that guideline, and it will help you find a better path to where you want to go. So, like, for example, I will speak specifically like about design process and design thinking, and we have these steps, right? Of from incorporating different ideas and then putting them together, like brainstorming and all that, and until you have a prototype, and then you test it, and all those steps. Sometimes, like, it sounds like you have to do those things. If not, you at least for the things that you read and online and stuff, or what people tell you, you have to do it that way, or it doesn't work. And in real life, you sometimes you just have to like start from actually like the brainstorming was actually just like a talk that you had with someone, with the PM or someone, and you just like the brainstorm wasn't a real brainstorming sessions with post-its everywhere and like on the whiteboard or anything. It was just like probably just a talk, and then you had an idea and you just want to do it quickly, so you just jump straight to, you even jump the wireframing part and you go into like high fidelity design because you want to do something quick. So those things are there, and I see them as Lego parts, right? That it's not linear. You can sometimes like grab them and then form something from the pieces that you need only. So, but I would say that. But yeah, anyway, does that answer your question? What I think about processes, more a guideline and not a rule.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Yeah, and so. Do you follow a process, like a process when you're working with designers?
More like framework, I think, is appropriate. Like figuring out kind of why you're doing anything to begin with, and then moving on to more and more detail as you make progress. Like that's one. There are a couple of models to follow that can be helpful depending on the project you're working on and the situation. I'm sure you guys have seen a ton of these in the past, like Google's design sprint is one.
Yeah.
And just a general framework for how to work together or how to work through the different cycles or stages of a project. That's one. There are a number of other ones. There are probably 20 or 30 of these that you can just search the internet and find a framework for just about anything.
Let's talk about the Google Ventures one. Have you actually done the 5-day sprint? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, the 5-day sprint. I have done that one.
It sounds like so. It's tempting, right?
It's so hot right now.
In 5 days, you're going to have the solution, and you're going to have. I think sometimes people make it seem more of what it actually is. It's more like getting you in a place where you feel a bit more comfortable following something, but it's not like the only thing that you need to do. And 5 days, you cannot solve anything in 5 days.
Agreed.
It's just a
tool. Agreed. Just a tool.
Yeah, it's just a tool, exactly. So,
but I think it's good to use external sources of influence or guidelines like that, because a lot of times when you go through that, you may not see the value in it up front, and then when you're forced through the framework or through the model that you're working in to design the prototype and then get user feedback and then validate your assumptions really, really quick, you may find out that we discovered a lot of things that we don't know of. So I'll say the continued kind of forced nature of speed in that case, I think is kind of helpful. Like I think in that model, in that framework of like execution of work, speed is the thing that they're trying to force down.
Yeah.
Like they want to force you through all the major stages. You test all your major assumptions through the creation of this prototype and then testing it.
Yeah.
And then how is that different than what you actually need to do? Users will usually quickly point that out.
Yeah. And it just like compresses the whole process and I don't know, like in 5 days where you can actually invite people and like your CEO, if you have a big company, like probably VPs or something into the team, and where you're actually creating something, and then they get a better idea of like what the rest of the team is actually doing on the day-to-day basis.
It's also just kind of fun. I mean,
it is.
Like you guys have done this before. Like it's fun just getting a big group of people in a room with like no formal presentations. It's more just people like sitting next to each other just like this, working through a problem, like putting Post-its up on the wall. Like it's a fun exercise to create kind of a sense of collaboration and teamwork on a project. And then even if the things that you create aren't that revolutionary, just going through that process helps to crystallize everyone's agreement on a topic.
Yeah, and I think something that I found that is really interesting about this process where you include other people that are not usually involved in the creative process is that you realize that creativity is not exclusive to designers. You know?
Not at all.
That it's just a thing that if you give them the tools to anyone to actually explore ideas and put their ideas in I don't know, out there, you will realize that, I don't know, the person that you underestimated or you start realizing that, I don't know, there are a lot of creative people that that can contribute in that part of the process, and like including PMs and including like your engineer or someone else that sometimes even someone that was in the support team that actually has a lot of input from being the day-to-day with the support team and actually with the angry customers or the angry users. They will have a different perspective, and I don't know, it's that's one of the parts of these kind of processes that I like. That you also, me as a designer, I get to see things in a different way too. What about here on Hike? What is the process? Because you're a small startup, so.
You're not even startup yet.
Actually, first let's tell everybody. Do you want to tell everyone what you're working on?
I don't know about that. Then what do you think?
I think it's okay.
Share, baby.
Yeah, man, let's hear it.
Why not? It's just like a elevator pitch. What's going on here?
It's
Yeah, no calls to action. Like nothing. Just what we're working on.
I see. I can tell a story.
Oh,
yeah.
I can tell the story. Yes.
I am all ears.
I see. Yeah, I'd love to actually. So the story is that back in April, so at the beginning of this year, I parted ways with my company, and then I started to think like Adam at the moment does, what I'd like to do next. And while you're doing that, what you want to do is just paying rent and make a living, right? So you want to help people, not necessarily only for financial purposes, but some of it is so. So I started freelancing. I wanted to do freelancing. Like I asked a couple of friends, hey guys, do you need help? And someone said, yeah, please. Then I started working with them, and then after a month, I need to send an invoice. It's my first time in the US as a freelancer, never sent an invoice. I had a project, I still have invoice.to, invoice to, so I was excited, yes, finally I can use my own tool to send my own invoice. Then I just was writing the invoice and I connected my Stripe, but I'm thinking, hey, just a second, like I don't have a company here, how do you do it? So when I asked that question, I started thinking, okay, so let me Google this. How do you freelance? And I had like this list of things actually I need to take care of, like open a bank account. While I was trying to open a bank account, they asked me, hey, what kind of formation do you have? Are you sole proprietor, LLC, S Corp? I was like, what are those? Had to read a lot about that and decided, okay, I'm going to do this. And then there's like tax IDs, EINs, finding a bookkeeper, finding an accountant. Oh man, I went crazy. Health insurance, liability insurance.
And all of that is even before you send the first
No,
invoice.
I couldn't. It took 3.5 weeks for me from the time I wanted to send an invoice until I could send an invoice. I like to do things right. Like in a way, I want to like do something and I want to prepare the best way, best setup as possible. It took 3.5 weeks for me to set this up. And I was super, that was super stressful because you have to work, and on top of it, you have to learn, then you have to decide, you have to execute, a lot of work. Anyways, so I did set up my setup, and then like started sending more invoices. But then that got stuck with me. Like this shouldn't be this hard, right? There's Stripe Atlas for startups that they help you to start up and like you just help you. There are lots of tools out there. Like you can send invoices, time tracking. You can do contracts like Bonsai, Antco, I don't know, Caution app. A lot of great things, but nothing that helped me to set this business up. So basically, what we're doing is I wanted to tackle this. We are working on a place where you can come and we step by step actually set your freelancing business, open a bank account for you, get a credit card, help you incorporate if you want to, get you liability insurance, health insurance, get you an accountant, help you file your quarterly taxes and your taxes. And then we also have tools, but you're free to use whatever tool you want.
Got it. So it's more of the initial setup.
Initial setup.
Initial setup as a freelancer,
like it was. Yes, it is. I mean, I don't know. Like, I still am nervous about accounting and taxing. And if you don't set up it right, you're looking for potential loss of revenue from taxes. You look lots of maybe stress. You can do something wrong. You might if you're working with like big clients, you might be liable, right? Lots of question marks. So like all that 3.5 weeks of work, we just reduce it to a couple of days. Hopefully in future we can do it in a couple of hours too. You're gonna come there, set up your business, send your invoice, boom.
That's pretty cool. And there's also, sorry, let me just do something here. That's pretty cool. And at what stage of the project is it? You can share?
We built quite a bit of it, we are hoping to finalize the MVP, and Adam, thanks to him, he's helping us to do customer development, which is super important. Basically, we're talking with freelancers and try to understand if the problem we're solving, is it a real problem, or the value proposition we're offering, is it a real value proposition people would appreciate.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I would appreciate, they say that maybe do things for yourself and for your friends, and quite a bit of my friends find value, but I would like to make sure that there is a value to offer for people, and Adam has been great helping me for that.
What if they tell you, no, it's not viable?
Then we try to figure out what is viable.
It's an iterative process.
Yeah, no, you don't give up. You just
I also don't think this never ends, I think also.
Yeah.
Is that even if we're successful with the first stage and we validate that the things we're working on now and that we're already in the process of building, if we validate that those are worthwhile and we get the thumbs up, like, oh, this is the biggest problem that I have, we know who the customer is, we know how to find those people, we know how to deliver this value to them in a way that's helpful. After that, that doesn't mean you're done. It just means that you start expanding and moving into new areas with
process,
the organization.
Right.
And you just rinse and repeat that process until ideally one day you have a successful software company.
Yes.
That's cool. And are you working as a product manager right now, or just like a small things, or
honestly, for this project,
a little bit of everything?
This one specifically?
Yeah.
For this specifically, just helping in the early stage. I wouldn't quite call this product management, but it's kind of like the early stages. Like I describe this as a piece of product management, I would say. Probably a smaller component.
Got it.
So kind of, but
not really.
Yeah, I wouldn't say
at least your responsibility is a little bit different than
much less. So all U and team have done all the heavy lifting, and you guys have done a pretty good job so far.
He's so kind.
Cool. So let's talk about when you used to work as right now you're on the spot. Because you're the only it's two designers and one product manager, so we want to know everything. So what are the you kind of told us like the you went around the question of like what are the things that you don't like about us, but okay. What are the things that you do like?
Is that what product managers do, like soften the question?
You know, I'm not going to assume I know what all product managers do, but a lot of times, like folks will. I feel like that's kind of like the goal of product management isn't always to lead you to the exact right thing, but to kind of help steer a team, which oftentimes doesn't come from the PM. Like a lot of times that comes from the designers or from the engineers. Like you guys know what to build better than we do. We just know what customers are screaming the loudest and how to cut 80% of features so we can actually ship them on time.
Got it. And also, I suppose, like, about the business, what are the business objectives, not also and the user objectives.
I think why is the thing that most product managers focus on. Like the thing that product managers should own is why.
What do you mean by that?
So within a specific company or a feature within a product, or even like down to a release, understanding why a team is working on something, I think that's the biggest piece that a product manager should own. Like, why do we care? Why do we care about this?
Yeah.
Like within the context of everything that we could be spending our time on.
I see.
And I think this is especially true in startups and with software, but it also plays true even to small businesses. Like if you're not even in the software world at all.
And how do you remind us that what is the why? Do you print posters? You send us a Slack message? Hey, here's the why, by the way.
And that I think it doesn't quite matter as much depending on the company you're in, like the best way to communicate with everyone. Like that one can happen differently depending on the company.
Yeah.
Whether that's through Slack or email, a lot of companies like to create presentations which take a lot of time and effort, sometimes worthwhile, sometimes not.
Yeah.
But just communicating the why, that we think we should work on this problem and that it is, roughly this description, and then setting up the people who are solution creators in the best way to solve that solution or to solve that problem.
Yeah, because like sometimes as a designer, as a developer, you're focused on a very small part of the whole thing, right? So it's good to have someone that actually knows the big picture, product manager that's telling us why we're focusing on this small thing, or why our team that is focused on a small feature. Why? How does that fit in the full picture, right?
I agree, but I wouldn't take you guys off the hook here is I still think that the designers especially should have a pretty good understanding of the big picture. Maybe not in as much detail as the PM, but you should always be able to relate everything back to like the why of that specific feature, the why of that release, the why of the entire product or company as a whole. Designers should be able to do that too, which I think if you're not able to describe that as a designer, that's probably a good signal that your product manager or whoever's leading that business unit, whether it's a manager or a product manager, it's a signal that they're not doing as good of a job as they could be.
You're taking responsibility on or ignorance.
Yeah, I think so. If I, as a product manager, am not able to help you as designers understand why we're building this specific component and how that component relates to everything else in a way that you really understand and internalize, not just repeat back to me what I say, but you can tell me exactly why we're doing it. You understand how this relates to other things that we're choosing to not do. And then you can describe that to other people as a way to demonstrate your own understanding. If you cannot do that, it's a failure on my part.
I see.
And I think that a lot of times too, like going back to the initial question is what do I don't like? I'll identify a specific thing here. A lot of times I find it difficult to get designers to speak up. It's sometimes difficult to get designers to say like, oh, hey, wait. Like we could really easily design this and we could build this prototype or spec this out in InVision or mock this up. It would only take a few days in Sketch. But a lot of times they won't tell you like, oh, wait, let's hold on a minute. Give me more information here. And when that doesn't happen, then there's a misunderstanding of clarity. The product manager may be clear on the why, but they don't realize their own shortcomings in describing that to others.
Okay, but that sounded. I don't think I understood exactly. So you're saying like more speak up on. Well, it sounds like speak up in any part of the process, right? But also like speak up on
when you're not clear on the why. Speak up when you're not clear on the why.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you particularly remember, like, tell us a situation where you felt like, oh my God, that's quite tricky. Like that's why that's super tricky to work with a designer. Like, hey, do you remember a particular situation?
Yeah, let's see. Good question. And this is relating back to the initial question on why.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
I mean, like example. Just Pablo asked, like, what are difficulties working with designers, right? I'm curious, like, was there a situation where you felt exactly what he asked?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to use a really small example where it's not a sexy project description. A couple years ago, we were working on a new page for Udemy. And while there, at the time, we were using a lot of freelancers from different parts of the world because internally we just didn't have the manpower to execute these projects. So on one of them, we outsourced. We had to outsource a lot of the different pieces in order for us to get a job done. And for one of them, we needed a motion graphic of just an illustration. And as part of that project, we spec'd out exactly what we needed, but we were a little unclear of the format. And specifically how that artifact would be used. It was specifically going to be like we were visualizing a GIF. It would go on a page, it would loop, and then that would be it. So I think what we got back in that case, because of the lack of clarity, was just wrong file format. A couple of details were off about it. It was actually made in Flash. I can't remember the file format. It just didn't work at all with what we were doing, and we had to rebuild that asset from scratch. In that instance, like it was a failure on my part, but mostly because like I requested something that in that moment of like shuffling and juggling all of these pieces, you request for something that you think you provided enough detail on, and then without that feedback loop from the designer saying like, oh, hold on, I don't understand how this will be used. Like please tell me.
I see.
Right?
So you were just saying that maybe if they were to bring up those questions, like what's the format, how do you want us to do this?
Exactly. Like why are we doing it? How will it be used? Like understanding the full picture of, like what is the output from the designer used as an input for something else. And then confirming that handoff works correctly. Like number one, that's fully on the product manager to spec. But at the same time, it's really easy to overcome some of those mistakes just by the communication with designers.
So clear communication and just like speak up don't
Don't
be
back
shy. And I think it also sometimes I will be one of those designers that would just like focuses on one task and wants to have that specific thing, that specific animation perfect, and then I block myself from the rest of the people because I'm just like focused on that. For example, that if it were me that made that animation, just want to make that animation and have my own way of doing it, and then I don't communicate that. Probably that doesn't work with the rest of the how that thing is going to be implemented, or how the actual the animation is not going to work with to communicate the message that that you're trying to say on that animation. I don't know.
Yeah, and a lot of times too in these areas, which I think is like which makes this more complicated in the sense of a file or an artifact that has a specific file format. Like that's an easy obviously we should know that. But in a lot of cases there isn't such a strict binary rule for these things. A lot of times the product manager or the business unit that is requesting something has no idea. They don't even know often what they're asking for. They're much more moving in a general direction. Like we need like an animation or a motion graphic, and then their familiarity with file formats or how that could exist on a web page kind of ends at motion graphic, right? And then that's where I see a lot of opportunity. The rock star designers are the ones that can anticipate those needs ahead of time and kind of look out for the product manager to say like, oh, hey, like Adam, by the way, like I've done this a little bit in the past, and depending on the way that you want to use this, we may want to use a couple of different file formats. Or if you're building a web page and you're, let's say something that's common, like you're doing layouts or grid systems, should we use the standard 12 system grid or 12 column grid with standard margins that are in Bootstrap, or should we modify those to work with larger screen sizes?
Do you like getting into those details?
Oh,
you as a product manager,
100%. 100%.
Okay.
Every kind of input like that, or a question that's posed by a designer back to a PM or to a business unit, is 100% value add.
Should that communication be more with the developer, or is more because you are the glue that is like the bridge between those ideas that you have with the business and also the other parts of the team that are developing this?
Yeah.
Or should it be the designer actually talking directly with the developer?
I think the best way is to include everyone so that the product manager is aware of the question and the uncertainty to begin with. And then where the answer comes from, I don't think matters as much.
Got it.
In some cases, it will be the developer or the engineer that answers that question. But as long as you get that out into the universe that, oh, I have uncertainty on this, and depending on what direction we want to go in, we could do one of multiple options. And then you likely need input from someone else at that point.
Yeah.
And that can come from either the product manager or the engineering team or business unit or support.
I feel like sometimes PMs are, their decisions are mostly based on speed and more on chipping and just like, okay, we need to have something out there. And because I suppose like you're, probably I'm wrong, but how you measure success on a PM is like how much crap you put out there. Or probably I'm wrong on that too, but please correct me.
Yeah, I'd probably redefine that. Less crap you put out there. A lot of companies do measure that actually, like how many things you ship, right?
Yeah.
Where they want you to share all of the things that you shipped.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's kind of a bad process. It's nice to keep everyone up to date, but it's not kind of the only go-to metric of quality.
Yeah.
I think impact is a much better one, and the one that should really matter.
And okay, impact. What do you mean by impact? How do you measure impact?
Good question. So depending on the company, depending on the team, depending on what the goals are, this is where I think kind of leadership and strategic direction come in, which is normally like multiple layers removed from product management.
Yeah.
This starts in the executive suite, the VPs of different teams. They will normally divide agile teams up into different areas of a product. Let's take something simple like, actually let's use Instagram. It's fairly simple and I'll simplify this a lot. So apologies to anybody at Facebook or Instagram who's watching this.
If you are on Instagram or Facebook, on the comments, leave us a comment telling us you're wrong.
Yeah. So a bad way to split teams at a company like Instagram would be for one team to own, for instance, the picture taking experience as well as the consumption experience, right? So on one side, a user is taking a photo and publishing that photo out for everyone else, which is one motivation that you can have as a user.
Yeah.
And on the other side, you're a user that's viewing other people's, right? You're consuming the photos. So they're two like pretty different activities, right?
Yeah.
You're motivated for different reasons. The flow that you go through to utilize that feature is different. A better way to split those in an app like Instagram might be one team focuses on producing content and another team focuses on enabling users to consume content. And you see how it's kind of a cleaner division?
The goals are different of the user, right?
Correct.
You're saying that since the goals are different, probably the teams should be focused on those different goals.
Correct, exactly. Much better said than me. But normally that will come from like at higher levels in the company. They'll decide how they want to organize the team and they'll decide which metrics they need to hit. So on one side, there's someone probably at Instagram that is responsible for generating a lot of good and high value images, right? So enabling a lot of images to be published.
Yeah.
And then another team enabling people to consume and interact with those images, right? It's a pretty clean separation.
Yeah.
So depending on the company you're in, whether it's Carbon or Udemy or Instagram, there's normally a select group of actions that are based on user type that you naturally start to split teams, and then each of those areas of the product will have an agile team centralized around it. And then depending on what that function is, or what the goal of that team is, the objective, there'll be a specific metric that you can use or a combination of metrics that help you identify whether that business unit is doing a good job or a bad job. In all cases, the goal is to reduce the total number of dependencies with each of those
I
teams.
see. In that case, how do you create a bridge between, for instance, if a team is focused on creating content, the other one is focused on consuming content, how do you make sure that two teams are aligned in a way? Like one can actually create something that breaks something for other one can create something that breaks things for other one.
Perfect question.
And how do you empathize, make them empathize each other or know about each other?
And that, I think, is a perfect question instead of like, what does a product manager do? Is that how can you, and I'll steal your term from before, like how can you be the glue between the teams that help each team operate? But at the end of the day, like we do nothing as product managers. You can quote me on that. Like product managers really don't do anything. We just make sure that the work that other people do is most effective. So if there's a team that's spending months and months of time making sure that people who take pictures have the best ability to do that. It's the highest quality, the filtering is amazing, it's super slick and easy to use, the app is intuitive. If that doesn't work at all with browsing images, on the opposite side, it doesn't work. So aligning both of those teams to make sure that the output of one works as the input to the other, or vice versa, or in some cases there's less of a black and white line between one team and the other and it's more gray. Facilitating that collaboration, making sure that both teams work together.
Yeah, and in those cases, probably you're working with another PM, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. So there would normally be one PM looking out for the interests of both sides.
Got it. Okay, cool. What about I'll rephrase my question before in a different way about speed. I'll go back to like probably designers, we care about the quality of what we put out there, and sometimes quality costs time and costs like that we need to test it more. I want that pixel to be perfect, and but sometimes probably as someone that is in product, you realize that is, I don't know, probably it's not going to make a huge difference because the problem is already being solved. The product works. That you push the button and it does the thing that you wanted it to do. So how do you manage that? I suppose that disagreement sometime on speed versus quality. That probably the designer will be the one that is the championing quality and the PM is championing speed. I might be wrong about that. Again, I am making big assumptions here about like PMs being champions of speed.
Yeah. I'd be curious too, like my experience is that depending on the company or depending on the team, like there is either that kind of that division and focus. So sometimes you are 100% correct. I think a lot of product teams probably have that division, is that designers feel like They should be putting out really high quality, intuitive user experiences.
Yeah.
And then the product teams care a little bit less about that. Not that they don't care at all, but they're judging success through a different lens. I think that's fairly common. I'd be curious if anybody comments on this.
Yeah. And also I suppose like you also want that, but your process is different, where it's like we're gonna get there by actually testing it, by actually putting it out there, by actually seeing if it breaks. If it breaks, well, okay, we'll put it together again. And I think sometimes what happens is that it kind of like sometimes projects get to a place where they just work, and then let's move on to the next thing, and then you don't go back and actually fix those little details that make the experience a little bit better. And I think that some designers are the ones that champion those little things, and versus like a product manager now has a pipeline of different projects that are like coming, and now you need to now the priorities are different, and let's go to the next one. So I don't know what I'm saying. I'm saying like, how do you manage that? Like the angry designer is like, no, but the pixels. Like I don't know what is my question.
No, it makes sense. So in short, yes, I think this happens a lot. The best product managers and the best teams that I've seen, this is much less of an issue, because the designer is gauging the success of a project in the same way that the product manager is. That's the absolute best. The more different those two individuals gauge success, the worse off. So in a perfect world, the objective of the designer is the exact same as the objective as the product manager, or at least as close to it as possible, which is driven by impact. More important, I'll say impact divided by cost, or impact minus cost. We could spend 1,000 hours perfecting like every small like pixel shade of a web page. That's true, and it would look beautiful. The shading would be amazing. The visuals would be perfect. But would that help the team or the company achieve the goal that they have? Let's say for a healthcare app, is it going to help deliver better healthcare to people? And that's where I feel like reframing both the product manager and the designer. And I know we're focusing just on PMs and designers for now. This also includes engineers. I see this as a total trifecta, but when the three teams are completely separated, and that the product manager is the only one who cares about the business and the impact, and the designer is the only one that cares about the user experience, and the engineer is the only one who cares about the code quality.
And that's a performance.
That's a bad sign. That's a pretty bad sign. And often that comes as the result of just how teams are organized, is that there's an engineering stack, and then there's a product management stack, and then there's the designer stack, and you have designers reporting to senior designers, reporting to design managers, reporting to directors and VPs, and that's how it gets created. The most successful examples, I think, are organized around objectives, right? Like this is the team whose objective it is to build supply. It just so happens that they have product managers, designers, and engineers, and all three people have the same goal. Then you start asking the question, well, if that's our goal, how can I help?
Okay, right? Cool. Well, now level deeper. How do you manage when the actual designer or your developers don't agree with the strategy? They don't agree with the goals. They don't think that that's what we should do. They don't agree with the why.
I think that is a good sign of a good designer or a good engineer, is that they're willing to push back a little bit. I think in the worst case, you take a spec, you hand it to a designer and an engineering team, and then the immediate reaction is like, okay, let me go do this. And then that's it. The way I usually describe this is it's almost like a system of checks and balances, is that if you as a product manager, as somebody who with no authority is trying to help a team reach a certain objective, and in order to do that, you need individuals to do their specific tasks, right? Like as a PM, I may not have the skills to build the thing, either in terms of design or in terms of engineering, but there are certain things I just don't know how to do, which is okay. Same could be said for every member of a team. But if somebody else isn't clear, they're not sold on the why behind an idea, and they do push back, that's a pretty good signal that maybe we shouldn't be building this thing to begin with, or maybe it's not ready to be built yet. There might not be enough detail in. So I would always ask this. If I was working with a product manager, ask them why. And if you're not sold on the why, if they're not able to sell you on the idea, then that's a good signal that you're not ready to begin the work anyway.
I see.
But you have to work though. You have to do it though.
Yeah, sometimes. And it's not that you are saying I'm not doing the work. It's usually about adding more and more clarity onto what the work is.
I see. Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Let me go into some of the questions because we have a lot of people here commenting. Let me actually, I think I have.
How much time do we have?
We have, oh shit, it's 6:20.
Let's see, can I see these on mine? I may be able to.
Hold on. So let me transition in here so we can actually see the chat. So we have, let me make this bigger. So we have, what can we as designers do to make it easier on you, the product manager?
Oh, that's a good question. Thank you, whoever asked that. Yeah, I often don't get asked that question.
It's usually the opposite, right? Like, you make me designer my life easier.
Yeah.
Like, but no, how do we?
Yeah.
Why do designers talk like that in your world?
I don't know. All of us designers are just like bitchy little brats that are just like, the pixels, the colors and the gradients.
Yeah. This will go back to your question on speed.
Yeah.
Right? I look at everything that any cross-functional team does is always balancing risk. Like it's always a function of risk. How much are we going to invest, which is normally in terms of time, like total number of hours between the PM, the designer, and the engineer, or everyone that's involved in a project. So time and resources invested to what impact you have. And a lot of times you just don't have the information that a designer needs, right? So in order for me to give you like a single document that says this is all of the inputs that you need to design for.
I see.
It's extremely rare to have that. It's like in almost no cases will you ever have that unless you're working on something really small.
I see.
Usually it's much more abstract, like we need to move in a specific direction. And designers have, in my experience, a tendency to go one of two directions. Like one, I think you are, Pablo, which is, there's a little bit of direction, mostly abstract, but I'm pretty sure I can do something that'll make this better. And then you just dive right into the details at the beginning. That is one side, and then the other pushback, or the other reaction is pretty common, which is I'm not ready to work yet until I have a certain amount of input. So one of two of those, and not that either one is right or wrong, but knowing how to work in either of those situations is different. So in the first case, where you have the exact spec of exactly what you're doing, feel free, make it pixel perfect, do everything as high quality as you like, because the opportunity for making mistakes at that point is pretty low, because the certainty on what you're building is high.
Yeah.
So the spec is there, you know the details of what you're designing, feel free to go forward on full-fledged design.
Okay.
On the opposite side, if the details aren't there, and I'd say this is probably 80% of projects, if the details aren't there, you have two ways to get detail back or to get confirmation that you're building the right thing. The first is continue down the product management kind of research, like user research path, which is one channel of input.
Yeah.
And then the other, which I think is dramatically underutilized, and this is where I think like some designers could benefit from, is start experimenting really lightweight, like super lightweight sketches. I mean, like hand sketches on paper, wireframes in balsamic, even using like cutouts of other websites, design patterns, or ways that the same problem has been solved in slightly different situations. Mostly just to set the question up with the rest of the team, is this going in the right direction? Yes or no?
Okay.
And then from that, you're able to kind of back in to, oh no, let's exclude this area of solution or this opportunity and narrow our focus a little bit. Or in a lot of cases, like, oh no, that is the right thing to do, and then you can zoom in on it. So experimenting, my suggestion would be to experiment more faster.
Yeah,
specifically faster.
Sketch and check.
Yeah, sketch and check. That's a good one actually. Experiment faster and lighter weight when certainty is low, and just move. And then when certainty is high, that gives you the ability to really, that unlocks the ability for designers to really show off what they can do.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Okay, next question. Just real quick, let me put it here, which I actually like a lot. For someone that is a designer, Soja Singh Brar, hopefully I'm saying your name right, dude. He's asking, hey, I want to move from the design field into product management.
Mm-hmm.
How do I do that? Like, should I study something? Should I, what are the skills that I need to have, I suppose?
Good question.
Like as a designer, how can I get it? I'm interested in product manager. What do I do?
Good question. So I'd say at its core, like the most abstract way to describe the difference between PMs and designers is one really owns the solution, which is designers, like how to build something that does blank or solves a blank problem. On the product side, it's much more about problem understanding.
Yeah.
I would just say look around you, identify problems in anything, whether it's your workflow or problems within an app, and then document just that problem, and then build something as a designer to yourself who created that spec initially. I worded that bad, but describe the problem that you'd like to solve first, and then kind of apply your own designer thinking to that setup and say like is this enough to build?
Yeah.
Like, am I able to describe this as a problem without designing something or without creating a solution? And just practice that a little bit. And I think pretty quickly you'll realize like there's a little bit more to it than most people realize. Then kind of awakening yourself to that realization that you can describe things as problems, not as, oh, here is a better way, let me show you. Much more, let me describe to you exactly what is wrong with something that exists.
But if I want tomorrow, I want to apply to a product manager position at a different company. Like, what are the things that but I've been a designer for all my life, but I want to move into product management position. Like, what are the things that they're going to ask me, or they're going to see, what are the check marks they're going to go like, yeah, you do this and you do this, or sorry, are there any books that you recommend something to?
Honestly, like I haven't seen a lot of like comprehensive resources. I'd say with a little bit of Google searching, you'll be able to find probably an unlimited number of articles. That's been the best resource to me.
I mean, you moved from being in growth team into project management, right? The product management, sorry. Was there something there that actually helped you a lot into getting into that role?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing for me is just building stuff.
Actually doing it.
Yeah, like actually doing it myself. So
Yeah.
I've launched a number of web products and online businesses in the past.
Yeah.
And then putting yourself in the position where you can continue to make a design pixel perfect.
Yeah.
But if you do that, you prevent yourself from working on one of the other 20 things you have to do. Just experiencing that trade-off firsthand of priority is that you never have the resources to do what you want to do. Helps you to ask the question of what is the biggest problem that I should be solving now, and then prioritizing what you spend time on.
It makes sense because whenever someone asks me like, "Hey, I want to get into design and I want to get into, I don't know, I want to be a graphic designer." Well, do designs, and then you eventually.
Practice.
I mean, as soon as you start like designing stuff, then you're a designer. Now, are you a good designer? Well, that will only come until you practice a lot and you you design a lot of stuff. It kind of applies here. Well, you want to be a product manager, as someone that just manages products, that builds products. Well, build products, like do that, right? And I like that thinking.
Let me ask this question. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
What would a designer need to be doing that he or she isn't or wouldn't do as a designer, but then they would need to do as a product manager? Like they might not like, or they might do more of, or they might not have experience of.
Yeah, I'd say critical thinking and planning is probably one.
Planning
planning in, I'd say specifically breaking down complex projects or just general tasks into small pieces, and then figuring out of all of those subcomponents which ones you can skip.
I see.
So let's take a web page, for example, or let's even make it smaller. Let's say an icon or any kind of graphic for a website.
Yeah.
question one would be, as a designer, okay, well, what do we want the illustration to be, right? Like, and then you can start working on that. The first question I would ask as a PM is, well, do we really need to do this?
Okay.
Like, why? Why are we doing it? Is there a quicker way?
Okay.
I see. So they would, you would, as a designer, like you would ask, okay, how do I do this illustration?
Mhm.
And then you have to start thinking or shift your way of thinking that, do we really need this? Or can, like, and then start thinking about it and breaking into subtasks and try to figure out what you can remove. I see.
Yeah, so for me to spec, maybe we need an illustration. Again, going back, a designer may push back and say, well, yeah, do we really need this? And can we use, anything from, I don't know, the Noun project, or find graphics that already exist and help us skip this stage so that we can continue to solve other problems in this general area so that we can hit the impact that we want with less effort.
Makes sense.
Shifting that is kind of hard, like making that mental shift and stuff.
Yeah, it might come naturally to some people, but likely not to some.
I have a question by Nikita Vaidia. Hopefully I'm saying it right again. Is agile process killing designers' creativity? What's your take on it?
Oh, I feel like no matter what I say on this, and I'm going to be wrong. Good question. I've spent most of my career in software working in an agile-ish environment. I've never done strict agile, Scrum, and I've never done strict waterfall. I know there are some other software development frameworks, but those are probably the two most opposites. I don't think it's killing creativity. I wouldn't say that. Yeah. I'd say it's more like making the creativity more precise. So it's identifying areas of impact, and then it's aiming the creativity that designers have on specific areas. So instead of applying full creativity to a large swath of problems, let's say problem A, B, C, and D, we might say that, well, actually problems A and B, we need full creativity and time and effort on those. But for C and D, we only need to focus on a small subset, so we can skip, part 2 of C and part 2 of D and reduce our total work by a little bit. From the designer's perspective on the quality of all of those 4 components, it might be a little bit worse off. But from the product standpoint, I would argue that you still have the same level of creativity, and you're still having the same impact, but you have less work that went into it because the focus was narrower.
I think having limitations actually helps your creativity sometimes, right? Because
it boosts your creativity. This is something I figured out. More limitations I have, easier my life gets and more creative I get. One of the hardest things for me as a designer is if you have so much freedom or too many options, it actually becomes much harder for me to create something quick. Pros and cons.
I agree. Like I would respond to that question to a designer like let's say that your objective is go create $1 billion company. And that's your only constraint. Like that's pretty hard. That would be pretty hard to do.
And you have to be very creative.
Very creative
to get there.
But it's a lot harder to do. Where if you over time break that up and say, oh, we need this page to convert at 20% more than we are today, and then you do projects like that again and again and again and again and again. Each of those individual projects is easier, and then together they make that larger problem, which is create $1 billion company. It makes it easier to achieve.
So we have, I think this question is for you, Uber. I think you will be a great candidate for answering this question. Suresh Kumar G, he asks, what qualifications, what things, what skills, what talents should designers have to become a product designer, like going from just a designer to focusing on product design? What are the things that make a product designer special?
I think it depends how you define design and how you define product design. But if by design you only mean UI, visual design, or that parts, I think what makes a product designer is that they both do product and design. So you don't only design anymore. Just you're not only creating solutions, creative solutions, but you actually spend much more time on identifying the problems. And that problem is not only a design problem, that problem is a business problem, that problem is a problem of another person in your company. So you start spending more time on that. You spend more time talking to people, you spend more time looking at data, you spend more time trying to understand what other people's goals are. Then you start designing. That makes you a product designer compared to just a designer. I don't know.
I suppose like it goes from I don't know, like from a junior designer into someone that is like also like more senior.
Mm-hmm.
But I get what you're saying, where it's more when you're in product, it's not about just like how it looks is just one piece of the puzzle.
Definitely,
definitely. And it's more. You mentioned like a person in the company, and it's weird, but you got to learn some politics too, and how navigate all those things.
It is empathy a lot. I mean, not
empathy.
Necessarily politics. You don't have to be politic, but if you empathize people, I think it just solves itself. You can be politic, like. As well, but if you just really care what other people's goals are, what their problems are, I think it helps you not only as a professional, but as a person as well.
So give, listen and give.
Yes, that's why they call it give and take, not really take and give.
Or give and give. What about just giving?
That's also fine.
Yeah, that sounds good too.
Yeah.
And not taking, and just like giving and not with the hopes of it coming back.
Yeah, that's totally, yeah. Usually it comes back in this or that way, but I think it's a good philosophy. Yeah.
Cool. Well, hopefully we didn't get too philosophical with you on how to become a product manager.
Oh boy, I mean,
just
like,
give.
yeah.
Just give, be insane, and it will come back all to you. Okay, so not sure if that's what. Hold on. So what is this? I mean, this is not specific for product management, but probably we can answer this question for Task Hux. He or she is asking, why are companies only hiring seasoned UX designers and not entry-level junior designers that can be mentored? I mean, this is a generalization, I suppose, but I don't know. Like, have you seen this, like in other companies where their goals at the hiring in the hiring is mostly focused on more senior designers and not people that are, or what is it? What are the things that you look for when you're hiring a designer?
I think it depends on the company and stage. I'm sure Adam also has quite a bit of experience, because when you likely started at Udemy, it wasn't that big, and then it started growing. Then things change a bit, but there are pros and cons of starting with a senior designer versus a junior designer. But
okay, let's talk about those.
Yeah. I don't know, like if I am looking to build my team, I usually like to work with junior designers, but there has to be someone who can teach them. So some teams are not necessarily have the bandwidth that there is a senior designer who can actually mentor someone.
Yeah.
That sometimes comes at a bottleneck. It's literally logistically not possible. Usually companies like to start with someone experienced so that person can start and then hire people who are not experienced. That totally makes logical sense as well. Because like, think about the situation. I'm sure like there are lots of talented people who could also learn by doing, though it takes a bit more time. So people might appreciate a bit of experience, but I don't know. Adam, what's your take on that?
You know, I haven't hired any full-time designers in San Francisco.
But you have
today.
Interviewed people. You have interviewed designers.
I guess for entry level, I'm speculating as I say this. I think generally across companies, at least in the Bay Area, a lot of the startups and the tech companies are much more mature today. So they've been around for long enough. We're kind of in our second technological wave in the area. For that reason, we're identifying more tightly like what we want to happen. Like we as generally companies in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
The problems we're solving are getting more specific and more complex. They're getting more complex overall and more specific because they're dividing those complex problems up into smaller pieces. For that reason, it's often not enough for someone to come in as a total new entrant and say, like, hey, I'm going to really contribute here. Often it takes kind of that seasoned view of what design and what like building software looks like, to understand, oh, actually this is more complex than I realize.
Yeah.
To make sure that they're spending effort where they need to, that they're avoiding areas where they need to, and they're just having the most impact. That would be my guess. But generally speaking, I think it's because the companies in the area are just much more mature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I've always, this is personal, and I cannot say what companies are doing out there and what, but I can only speak for what I look when I hire, and I wish more companies did this, and I have been fortunate enough to have been hired by companies that focus more on that.
Mm-hmm.
That is like they're hiring not only the skills, but they're hiring also the person. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're hiring people, and they're hiring this person that has like all those soft skills and all the personality and all that. And sometimes it's better to have, at least have, you need to have that. That is what you, but I think that's more important. And then the skills can be learned, right? They can be taught, sorry. And so on that, I would say like, hey, it doesn't matter if there's a junior, if they're a junior designer that probably doesn't have the experience, as long as they have the attitude to get there.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes you and I think that's where you're going with on the advantages and disadvantages, because you can hire a really seasoned designer that has, because of all that time, probably sometimes they are like, their ego is really inflated.
But there are also disadvantages there.
Yeah, and they already have a really set way of doing things. So it's going to be really hard to get them to actually like, hey, you know what, we're trying to do some things differently here. So it's going to be really hard to also get them to be on board with that. And I'm not saying every seasoned designer is like that. I'm saying that it's harder, right? And because you already have probably a way of thinking. So it's more about, I would say, but you can also have a very seasoned designer that's really, their attitude is open and they're willing to like do what it takes. And I think it's, I consider like we're all juniors in a way. We're all, I would say we're all learning. The thing is that some people think that they learn enough. And that's the person that you don't want to hire.
As soon as
You
you
know?
feel like you're done learning, I think I always think that the day that I stop learning is the day I die. It's literally, there's more you know, actually more you know that you don't know.
You're right. And
I would even give that as advice for junior designers who are coming into a company, is that like, be weary of the manager who thinks that they can't learn anything from you.
yeah, that's true. And probably you don't want to work in that company either, right? So that's a red flag, not for them, but for you. But anyway, let me see if there are more questions. Matt Arwin, what special qualifications to the designers? I think I don't know. Like let's wrap it up. Guys, if you have any comments, any questions, like this is the time. We're gonna wrap it up soon.
Yeah.
This has been,
We caught Adam here, so we should get as much as we can.
we have
let's go,
insider
guys.
knowledge of the product manager here.
A couple of tough ones. Let's see what you got.
I really appreciate your valuable words. Thank you. Dask is saying that thank you. So yeah. I would say thank you, Adam, for being here.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, guys. We should do a little bit more of these.
I love that.
And you know what? We should invite more people too, because if it's just us, we just get in fights. It gets nasty, man. We need someone that is a moderator in the middle.
You know what? I'll help out under one condition.
Okay.
Next time we got to break out the wigs again.
We got to break up the what?
You got to bring the wigs.
The wigs. I forgot
How
about
do you guys
the wigs.
forget the wigs this
Damn,
week?
yeah, I see.
Yeah.
I see. Next time.
We should do the wigs.
Next time.
Okay, so somebody's asking, so who are you? Like somebody apparently just appeared here. And she's like, who are these gentlemen? Okay, so Schuler, this is Adam. Brief intro, just for whoever wasn't there in the beginning.
Sure.
Adam Treister.
Adam Treister, serial entrepreneur and former product manager from Udemy.com.
Yeah, and we work together in some projects. We also work together at Udemy. An amazing product manager, an amazing person. It's really happy to have you here, Adam. And Ugur. Ugur is, I would also say a serial entrepreneur. I like that. Serial. What does that mean? That you just, it sounds like a serial killer, but you just like creating products. Like,
I feel like we're pretty similar in that way, where about every year or so we launch something new.
Yeah, it means that you can't stop releasing and launching products, and then companies.
Yeah.
So it becomes habit, then nothing else cuts it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a fun process.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
And so Ugur Caner.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes.
And you're working on a new project.
Yes,
too.
yes. I'm a product designer. I used to head design for a company called Mimibugs, and this year I've been working on my own projects, invoice.to, invoice2, to send invoices. Now working on Hike, helping freelancers to start and manage their businesses. And I also help a really cool company called layer.com, and building conversational experiences there.
Okay, well, thank you so much, guys. I think we gotta wrap it up.
Awesome.
Matt Orwin asks about like building the wrong features. Do you have a quick answer to how do you handle teams when building the wrong features?
Is this before you build the feature, or are you saying you have a problem of building the wrong features?
You're probably before, during, and after.
Yeah, I'd say again, just keep asking as a designer.
Yeah.
Back to the business unit or the product manager why you're building a feature.
Yeah.
And why this is the specific thing. And if you're not able to be convinced by that answer, don't build it. It is the product manager's job to convince you of why you're building something and why it's the right move. And if they're not able to, it's a signal that you're not building the right thing.
You're not building the right thing. So just say no. Just say no, kids.
Yeah, don't say no. Like a better way to phrase it would be, I'm hoping to understand the problem that this solves.
Yeah.
This is actually a good indication. Like as you move, get more and more experienced designer, you say a little bit more no's, or like you ask more questions.
Yeah, you ask more questions.
It's
and
not
you push
like,
back like you're saying, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's you want to be convinced, and you don't want your time to be wasted on the wrong features.
It's not only yours;
exactly.
it's just the whole company, right?
Exactly.
It's just you don't really take that. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, and sometimes
this will help the product manager too.
Yeah.
Is that if you can help the product manager to realize that you're not building the right thing, or that you're building something that doesn't have the intended impact.
Yes.
Yeah.
The sooner you can help the product manager realize that, the more valuable you even are as a designer before designing anything.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's good. So ask questions, ask why. If you're not convinced, ask why again, and probably get your product manager to help you understand all those things.
Being a product manager is super tough. So kudos to you, Adam. You're in between everyone. Like you're like business, growth, design, engineering. Likely you get fingers are pointed at you when things work, when don't work.
Yeah.
So it's super tough. Super like big respect to being all the product managers out there. It's just a really tough job to be.
Yeah, I know.
And I'll apologize to all the designers out there for having to put up with folks like me all the time. So hopefully, if you guys are designers and having issues with PMs, sorry in advance. Sometimes it just happens.
I think I had a few issues with programming. I think my ego can be really big sometimes. I have to work with my ego, and sometimes
I think everybody
does. Yeah.
Yeah, we all do, I guess.
If we could, we would be already.
Yeah, and sometimes I am one of those people, one of those designers, we don't need product managers, we can do this ourselves. And then I realized all the shit that product managers do, and I was like, oh no,
this is the best way to appreciate a product manager, actually.
Yeah. Like, oh, I gotta look at numbers? No, spreadsheets.
It's boring, who needs numbers?
Exactly, just you do it. You do the hard work.
It is actually super bliss. Like, I find it super luxurious that there is someone who does all the job for you and actually helps you to concentrate. Otherwise, you're going to need to ask those all questions like by yourself, going to need to do it, learn, talk to users and so on. So it's actually a big luxury to have a product manager in the team.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you. Let's do this again. Actually, Leslie is saying thank you all. Let's do this again.
Yes.
She was.
We'd love that.
thank
Yeah,
you.
we'd love that.
We're gonna need to break out real ice cream next time.
Oh
we
need
Sunday. We should maybe get a
Sundae.
Sunday machine.
Ooh, that's another homemade ice cream. I think we got some in the kitchen.
Another product that we need, you serial entrepreneurs
Yeah.
need to do. Let's put some music for out.
Where's our theme music? Or is it going to be a cumbia?
Yeah, between two cushions.
Between
with
two
Adam and
cushions.
Ooh.
I like it. Hold on, I have the perfect music for this.
Oh, yeah. That's nice.
Bye bye.
Bye everyone.
Thanks,
Way to
guys.
go.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
joining.
so much. Bye bye.
See you next time.
Yeah.